You leaned against the brick wall with your bike next to you as you looked down at the bright screen of your phone. The street in front of you was buzzing with people. The sun's rays glided over the buildings of Queens and landed gracefully on the opposite side of the street. Peter's name shone at the top of your phone's screen. You were supposed to meet him at the old coffee shop you were currently standing outside, but he just texted you and said he couldn't stay long. "It's fine, I just wanted to see you," you texted back, knowing that he wouldn't believe you were okay with him having to leave sooner than expected. He was always so worried you would be upset with him when he canceled or had to leave early to a mission or to regular patrolling. Though you felt an ache in your heart whenever it happened, as if his mere absence left a piece of your heart temporarily wilted, you could never be upset with him for more than a few seconds once you thought of how much joy being Spider-Man brought him. "I'm almost there, I promise." You smiled at the words on your phone. You could practically hear his frazzled voice as he swung his way through the maze of New York buildings. Soon you heard a rather insistent psst come from the alleyway to your right. You flicked your eyes in the direction of the noise and you were met with a red and blue clad superhero standing in the shadow of the building. You smirked at him and looked around before walking into the alleyway. He brought his hand up to your forearm and drew you closer to him. "Did I scare you?" Peter asked as he pulled you with him while walking backwards into the alley. He let go of you and took his mask off and put it on the ground along with his backpack. His hair had been ruffled by the mask and was sticking to his forehead while his soft brown eyes twinkled with concern at the thought of scaring you. "I'm fine, Pete," you said, chuckling at him. "You worry far too much." You brought your hand up to push his untidy hair away from his flustered face. His hair was slightly damp with the sweat and humidity of his suit. You tried not to pay too much attention to it. He huffed at your reply, but gave in to the attention he was being showered in and smiled softly with his eyes closed. His dark eyelashes contrasted against the pallor of his cheeks. Peter's hands lifted from their position at his sides and slid up to rest on your hips. He then leaned back against the chilly brick wall as you were brought to stand between his slightly widened legs with your frame almost flush against his. You leaned up towards Peter's face, flicking your eyes over his features as a smile carved itself onto yours. Peter's face was littered with the lightest freckles you thought possible. His under eyes were shadowed in a dark gray by the strain of all the late-night patrols. You placed a fleeting kiss on his nose, which brought a light dash of red to his cheeks and a bright smile to his face. Peter pushed his face into your neck. "How are you always so cute?" he asked against your neck. His lips tickled your thin skin with kisses in between his words. "And how did I get so lucky?" You giggled. "He always managed to make your knees weak." He lifted his head from your shoulders to look at you. You snaked your arms around his neck and your fingers stroked the hairs on the back of his neck. Peter leaned closer to your face. His eyes fell to your lips and then rose back up to meet your eyes in a soft, heart-melting gaze. This boy was trying to kill you. You were sure of it. You smirked at him knowingly and slowly moving to close the gap between your lips and his. Then, right before your lips could connect, Peter's phone rang somewhere in his suit. Peter pulled his phone out and glanced at the caller ID. "Shit, it's Mr. Stark," he said frantically, stepping away from you. "Ah, Tony Stark. The eternal cockblock," you said, turning to face Peter, who was still staring at his phone in shock. "Wait, is that where this was going?" Peter turned to you. His ringing phone was forgotten and his eyes so wide his eyeballs could have fallen from their sockets. "Peter, we're in an alleyway next to a dingy coffee shop," you said, looking at him incredulously. "So... maybe?" he said with a lopsided smile on his face. "Just answer the phone," you said, holding your hand out towards the still ringing phone in your boyfriend's hand. "Oh, right, yeah," he said, as if suddenly remembering not to ghost Tony Stark and sliding the button on his phone to answer the call. "Hey, Mr. Stark." Yeah, I know, okay, sorry, Mr. Stark. Okay, yeah, see ya." Oh, he hung up. "What did you do this time?" you asked jokingly, smirking at Peter, who was staring down at his phone with an almost comically sad frown pulling at his features. "I was supposed to be at the Stark Tower 15 minutes ago, and well, I'm not there." He breathed out an airy laugh towards the end of his sentence. You laughed at him and shook your head, your eyes lowering to the grimy cement floor. How on earth had this all over the place teenager helped to save the universe mere weeks before this? Okay, then why are you just standing there staring at me? Get your ass over there, you said, flinging your hand in the general direction of the Stark Tower. Okay, he said as he gathered his things off the ground. I'll see you later tonight, he said as he shot a web to the roof of the coffee shop and was practically yanked towards it. You had started walking away when Peter lowered himself down again, about a foot in front of you. His silver web was wrapped around his wrist and fingers, and he was hanging upside down with his legs pulled towards him. His hair hung down from his face. Some stubborn strands still clung to his forehead. "Oh, I forgot my mask," he said, his thin lips scrunching together like a little kid. You sneered at him and reached for his mask on the ground. You returned with the strangely soft material in your hand, but before helping him put it on, you stood on your tiptoes and connected your lips with his soft ones. He stopped biting his lips recently. The kiss was sudden for Peter, but he eventually kissed back once he realized what was happening. He'd be lying if he said he hadn't thought of kissing you upside down, and he was glad you thought about the same things he did. The kiss felt strange, though not uncomfortable, as you'd done all the necessary calculations for it to work. You had your hands on his face, your thumbs gliding over the apples of his cheeks. You pulled away with the shy grin dominating your facial features, and you looked down at your hands that fiddled with the mask. Once you'd lifted your eyes up, you saw Peter's red face and the dazed look that was stuck on his features. "Quit hanging around, Spider-Man," you said as you put your hands inside the mask to pull it over his face. He seemed to blink out of his state and realize what just happened. "We are so doing that again," he said as he started to pull himself up by the sparkling web. You laughed airily at that and watched him launch his web into the next building over. You smirked to yourself as you walked back to the bustling street and grabbed your bike. His hair had been... You brought your hand up to push... His lips tickled your thin skin. Your thin skin? What? Kisses in between. Ooh, my oatmeal's ready. Right before your lips could connect. Do you hear this bitch? Disrespectful. Anyway, he was still staring at his phone as stock.